And here we go. Welcome to Improv Breakdown. My guest today, he's done it all. Not only is he a 20-plus year veteran improviser and teacher, but he's also an experienced musician, singer, dancer, composer, actor, probably a number of other things I couldn't even find. He seems to do everything. He made his Broadway debut at age 14. And since then, Tezz performed shows all over the world. He's been on Broadway. He's performed at the West End. He's toured multiple countries at so many stage shows. I'm not going to list them all, but Vegas, the show, Double Time with Gregory Hines and Savion Glover, and Andrew Lloyd Webber's Starlight Express. And when he's not performing on stage or teaching, he finds the time to work as a TV and film actor with credits such as CSI and the Showtime series Dice. I'm very excited to talk with the one and only Tezz Yancey. Thank you so much for being on the Breakdown.
Thank you for having me, my friend. It's such a pleasure to see you, man. It's been a minute. A minute and a half.
A minute. But who's counting?
Apparently I am. Apparently. 30 seconds.
Someone's got to. I appreciate it. Someone's got to record the minutes.
Yes, sir.
So Tezz, let's start at the beginning. At one point, you weren't an improviser. How did you become one?
Well, I started in this business very young. I fell in love with theater at 8 years old. I had no idea it was happening. Like I always say, it was one of those things that chose me. At 8 years old, wow. I used to go. I grew up in Boston and used to go to my grandparents' house on the weekends, like the family house. Like it was one of those things, like the whole family would come down and that whole thing. And I remember there were two things that happened. One, I was in her living room where I wasn't supposed to be as a kid, and turned on the television like I wasn't supposed to do. And yeah, all those things. And I saw Michael Jackson on television and was like, what is that? Yeah. And then I remember there was the musical, I guess it was filmed in the early 80s, the musical Annie was on. So on two different stations where these two things that happened simultaneously, and I was drawn in by both. And that began kind of the journey. And so that ultimately, the really tight version of the story, ultimately led to me falling in love with it, understanding that it's actually a profession you can have. I had no idea. And improv became a part of my training, which I learned early on was essential to do. As an actor, as a singer, as a whatever, musician, dancer, you have to train. So once I showed interest, my family, God bless them, got me into local classes. There was a woman, Miss Purdue, at the end of our street that, taught piano lessons, little old lady, taught piano lessons and dance classes and acting. And so it really started there. We used to go in and she'd have us reading scripts and then put the script down and you'd make stuff up and use your imagination. That's really where improv started for me.
Wow. That's super cool. So you've been at it, I mean, almost your whole life. Yeah,
pretty much. I don't really remember a time where I wasn't doing it. My sister, who's 11 months younger than me, once we became like a brother, really a brother-sister duo. This is how, her name is Tish, my name is Tezz, right? And this is at 7 and 8, we had the imagination to go, wait, we should call ourselves TNT. Dynamite. Yeah, so that became, yes, it was really like
it's a good name. It's a really good name.
TNT Dynamite. And that's what we called ourselves. So I don't remember a time where we weren't performing for the family in the living room. And every weekend when we go to my grandmother's house, we were doing, Jackson 5 numbers or monologues. It was always something. I remember her singing "Who Will Buy My Sweet Red Roses" from the musical Oliver.
Nice.
Yeah, so I don't remember a time.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, hang on. I apologize. Yeah. All right, great. Okay, so you've been doing improv. You've been performing in Journal forever. Improv, though, as you said, it's just one of many things that you do. Why do you still keep doing improv all these years later?
Well, you know how this part goes. When I was doing that improv, I talked about as a kid in training, it's different. Once I discovered Second City, which was for me, I was like, wait, what? Like it became a whole other thing. It still is a part of the training, but wait, it became like, wait, you can perform this. And I started to get, like most improvisers who fall in love with it do, you begin to discover that there's a whole other world. So I really got into that aspect of it and just fell in love with that idea of like stepping into that unknown fear. I mean, you talk about stepping out of your comfort. I talk to my students about this all the time. It's like we can say these things all the time about stepping out of your comfort zone, but every time you do this improvisation on this level, you're doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I grew up in Boston, as I mentioned. I also went to college there, which was incredible in and of itself. Because growing up, I grew up on there's a major intersection in the city, Mass Ave and Columbus Ave. At that intersection, there's a jazz cafe called Wally's Cafe.
Okay.
As a kid, my neighbor used to wake us up in the morning in the summers playing a saxophone, right? And
Oh, wow.
he would play Wally's, yeah, I mean, it's like you'd hear this, and I didn't really get it. It was just like at that time, like I'm awake and didn't want to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Turn the racket up.
Yes. But it became a part of it. And so my grandmother said, yeah, he plays over at Wally's Cafe. And at the time, I just didn't get it. You know, when I started college, I went to Boston Conservatory in Berkeley. Once I got into college, I realized that all of the musicians and singers and stuff would go to Wally. So it was actually college students the whole time that would be in that place, and they were jamming. And that type of jazz, it was straight ahead jazz. To me, I always say that to me, that's the closest thing to the type of improv we do, straight ahead jazz. It's just, I walked in there for the first time in college and I saw my peers jamming, you know, and flowing and vibing off of each other and making it up. You know, I'm obviously there's a structure, just like with improv, there's a structure. We know what key we're in,
Sure.
You know, we know the tempo, we know the rhythm, but that I became basically infatuated with it. It's like I became an improv stalker. And would just follow it everywhere. So I do it now because I'm getting a phone call from an improviser.
Improv phone, Tezz speaking.
Yes, and what is that? So yeah, I do it because every time I do it, I feel like sounds cliche but true. I feel like I grow as an improviser and as a person. You know what I'm saying? You discover something new every time, or let go of something every time, or both.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Same. 100%. So, what is a lesson that you learned early on in your improv journey that has just stood the test of time? You still 100% agree with it this day. It has just been solid, 20 plus years later.
I've learned a lot of lessons. I think the one that jumps out first and it is something I still say, which is, you know, I was just joking about yes and, right? When I pick up the phone. And again, we hear that phrase all the time. We all get it, but I always bring myself back to the reminder of what that really means, right? This idea of agreement, and then taking it in acceptance. And what that says to me is like, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to be seen and heard? Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to be heard. And that's what you're doing when you really, that's another way to break down that idea of yes and, right? Because again, it just it can become empty phrases, empty words. You know, we hear, yes and, heightening, whatever we hear, but what does it really mean? And when you break it down, that's why when we do it, and I still do it, and it blows my mind even still. I yes and the crap on it. Can I curse on here? I don't know.
All the time, all fucking day.
Great. Okay, great. I want to check. I yes and the shit out of people all the time. Yeah,
nice.
And it blows my mind whenever I do it. And ultimately, what I walk away with each time is that person, subconsciously said, "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for taking me in." That's really what we want. That's a huge lesson. I still resonates with me.
Yeah. I mean, it bears repeating over and over and over because for whatever reason, at least in my experience, those nitty gritty fundamentals, like people want to be seen and heard, they're so true, but they're so easy to forget.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, I think it has to do with, it's this idea of conditioning, right? We're all conditioned, and we can talk about this on many levels, right? We could talk about it from the most serious stuff, the racisms, the sexisms, to I've improv scene, right?
Yeah.
We're conditioned, right? So it's like if you, again, when I left home, I talk about this a lot too. I can remember a time when, I got to a place when I had been gone for a couple of years, and I was like, wait, why am I like, there's certain things I learned when I was home, whether you vote this way or you do
Yeah.
things that way, or when I go shopping, like literally food shopping, I had a certain way I would see my mom do it. So I did it that way. And I got to, I
Sure.
was like, wait, I don't have to do it this way. I actually don't have to.
Yeah.
My grandmother had this system when I would go with her, and she had it down. She would she went to the same aisles, this aisle first, and she looped around. And I go this way first, because when you walk down this aisle, at the end of this aisle are the eggs, and then you come back up that aisle and you get the bread. But she had which I'm like, that's a form of discipline, and I get it, and I respect it. But that's her thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of it has to do with conditioning, and people say, oh yeah, I was yes-anding you. I'm like, were you? Or are you saying that because that's what you're supposed to be doing, because we're conditioned to in the training, right? So it's a really interesting thing. Training for me has always been instilled in me to be, it's a very important thing. And one of the best things I learned was you really do train to let it go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To let it go. Because if you and I are doing a scene and we're thinking about yes-anding each other, or we're not really present.
Nah.
That shit fascinates me, man. It fascinates me.
Yeah. I think that I like to say is that, you get it, you do the techniques, you do the lessons that help you learn, you get those into muscle memory, and then when you forget about them, you just go straight off of instincts, and your instincts are honed by how you trained, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, love it, love it, love it. At one point you weren't an improv teacher, and you are absolutely one now, so how did that transition happen?
Well, it's funny. It was a combination of things. I mean, I before this pandemic, I did do classes. I was coaching some folks, a couple teams. Actually, funny enough, the Zoom thing was kind of familiar because I was coaching the team that wasn't in LA. So I was doing that. I think we were doing Skype. Yeah, Skype. Remember that?
Were they all like in one room and you were different city? Yeah.
Yeah. And that came out of a really good friend of mine I worked with in Vegas, in a show in Vegas. She and her husband had gotten married, and they moved to Missoula, Montana. And she opened up a performing arts school out there, called Art Center. And she would hire her friends to come out and do master classes. So I got to go out there a couple times over a course of about 4 or 5 years. Nice. And it would be seasonal. So like in the winter, it was like she brought me out for a winter section where I taught a music course.
Yeah.
Summer was like dance and acting and voice, right? So I was in that mode, but at that, it was really more of I was performing full time as a living. So it was like performers teach all the time. When I was in New York, if you're doing a show, you can go teach. So it was more in that mindset. But I always enjoyed it. And I did keep some of those connections, including that team that was out of town. And we would, they're like, oh, we want to still work with you. I'm like, well, we could Skype. And we did. So that was already happening. But then obviously with the pandemic, it became a different view, very different view. Because there were no, everything I was doing was like the rug was pulled. So there was no leaving the house, there was no performing.
Yeah.
So, and it took me a while, Rich. It took me a while to actually decide to do it, because I don't know why, but for some reason I don't know. I wasn't really seeing it. Other people saw it before I did. They said, you have stuff to offer. You do it when you're doing the master classes or here and there. You have stuff to offer. You're at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Something about it. I don't know. I think conditioning. I think I was just conditioned to think a certain way. And so I said, well, let me go ahead and do some stuff I had already been doing with those coaching and then once I got going, I was like, oh, this is everything, because as you know, the audience got wider in terms of the people that were coming in, and I'm like, this is amazing. And it's so therapeutic, and it's been such a self-care thing for me.
Yeah.
throughout this whole pandemic. It really is one of those things that I could do and just get away for whatever, an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and then turn the Zoom off and be depressed again, But
I do
so yeah,
understand.
that's real. That's real.
That is super real. It's like improv class is like it's like a booster shot, like a vitamin B shot. You're like, yes, yes, and then it's over, and you're like,
Yes. Yes, because I was doing your Friday thing for a while. You remember you invited me to that, which was I was so grateful. It was one of those, one of those things that I looked forward to. And we always, man, I always dug you. We see each other over at like Clubhouse or Second
yeah.
City, and I always dug that. So when you invited me to that, I was like, hell yeah, I'll be there. So that was one of those self-care things for real. So thank you for that.
Oh, dude, it was my pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I virtually I've seen you more. I feel like than we get to see each other in person because yeah, we'd maybe run into each other. Oh, you're an Acme, I'm an Acme, whatever. But it's just been really nice. And I know that you've got what 2 classes a week?
Yeah, I'm doing Saturdays and Sundays, and then I do my jam on Thursday that I've been
Nice.
doing, and then I've been doing some kind of spot workshops here and there, which has been nice. I'm trying to it's a scheduling thing, but I want to do a musical improv.
Oh yeah,
I've been doing it
absolutely.
for a while, so I'm looking to get that rolling. So,
I have students ready for it because people ask me all the time about music classes.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
nice,
so as soon as you got it, send me the link and I'll share the heck out of it.
done and done.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a magic wand. You can give one lesson to all improv teachers that you think will benefit them. All of us will become a little bit better if you could give us what's one lesson that you believe in that we should all have.
One lesson, uh, something, it's something to do with like, I don't know. There's something. Patience is at the forefront of my mind.
Hmm.
Like something to do with like it's that fine line between um, wanting to. I mean, you're facilitating or you're the teacher, so you want to like come off like you know what the hell you're talking about. That
It
part.
helps.
Yeah. But also, there's something really interesting in like letting go of that too, on some level, because a lot of times, I mean, I over prepare. I really, I do. I'm like that. I was like that before teaching.
Yeah.
I think that that's just a good thing. I mean, if ever there's a time where I didn't have a chance to over prepare, I'm not going to freak out. You improvise.
Yeah, yeah.
But my thing is over prepare, and because I've never ever gotten through everything that I had planned.
Right.
Because what ends up happening is, and maybe this is the lesson to answer your question, there's something about kind of letting go of stuff, like being present enough, you're in control running the thing, but being open and present enough to recognize things in the moment. And so many times, and it happens consistently, I'm like on a path, right? We're doing this, we're working on XYZ today, right? And then we're talking before we get going. And I'm like, oh, X is out the window.
Yeah.
X is gone. We're working. That's X1 or that's Y or Z or A or whatever the hell. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so there's something in that. Is that maybe I said patience? Maybe it's vulnerability. There's a vulnerability. I think that humility that needs to be there. That's humble leader. I don't know. It's something in that realm of like.
I love it.
Being vulnerable enough to go. My idea. I'm letting go of. We do it in scenes all the time, right?
Sure.
So why not in this lesson plan? Let go of that shit, because today, in this moment, we need that thing, because you can feel it. Like I'm watching, going, oh, we need that. Y'all need this, and I need it today.
Yeah, well, it's a convergence of skills, right? Because what you're essentially saying is you see a class as a living, breathing entity that cannot conform to a plan exactly, right? Or else it won't be living and breathing, right? So you have a map, and then but you go where the class goes.
Right. That's
And
right.
Yeah, that takes awareness, humility, right? Curiosity. Like, there's a lot of things right there that it's a good answer.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to. How do you nail that into one? Would you say curiosity, humility, and what was the other one? Curiosity, humility.
I'd have to go back and watch the recording now. That was 4 seconds ago.
Yeah. How about we call it curipatiency?
Yes, we will call that all day. Curipatiency. That's your new workshop for teachers.
That's right. 12 to 2 next Sunday. Here we go. Let's get it.
What is so we improvise all our characters, of course, but we all have voices and little things that we go back to, right? What is a character that you've played or an archetype that you've played that just still cracks you up to play?
Okay, there's two that come to mind.
Yes.
One, and this is a very specific one because I'm sure you remember the Jerky Boys. Do you remember the Jerky Boys?
Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
When I tell you, I was a Jerky Boys fanatic. It was introduced to me. I was doing a show in Vegas, and the guy, one of the guys in the dressing room, was playing it, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" A phone call. And so remember, he used to do the "Hey Jerky, how you doing there, Charlie?" He used to do that thing there. That's sort of like it's kind of Italianish, but like New Yorkish or something.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, and that's one that, but it makes me laugh because I'm thinking of the Jerky Boys. There's that one, and another Jerky Boys is he used to do this character Saul Rosenberg. I don't know if you remember that character, but he was like, there's one where he's sort of like, he talks like this, I'm sorry, pardon me, sir, excuse me, I'm so sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. So those kind of sort of versions of those will come up, and then I guess there are three. Then the other one is I'll remember I'm from Boston, and I can throw that Boston accent on in a second, and that alone is a character. Just how are you? You throw that thing in there I am. You know what I mean?
There it is. Yes. So, you do come from a place with a naturally hilarious accent.
Oh. And I was just there. It is hilarity. Like I cannot. I was talking to one of my teachers from college while I was there, and she was telling me the story about this woman who said, "Let me get it right." She said, she says to her friend, she goes, "Oh, Donna, you got to taste this. This thing is wicked gourmet."
Wicked gourmet.
Wicked gourmet.
Well, you're the fucking queen over here.
Exactly. It's wicked gourmet. But hey, Donna, that's what it is. Hey, Donna, you got to taste this. This thing is wicked gourmet. I said, this is real life. This is not an improv scene. This is real life where I grew up.
I mean, it's such a good lesson, right? Like, wherever you're from, we're all from different places, but every one of us has hilarious people from locally from wherever we came from. And if we just listen to them, we got a whole stockade of characters at that point.
I'm telling you, I remind myself of this all the time. Like simplicity. I really try to harp on that because it's like, man, that shit just works. It's like, why complicate it? And we know it happens. It's always funny to me, you're in the scene and I'm like, how many scenes have you been in where it's like a very simple dinner?
Sure.
Right? Here we are. See, sure. Initially, we're just simple dinner and boom, bam, bow, boo, we're on the moon. We're on Mars. Right? Wait, my steak is floating away because it's zero. Exactly. Right? And right. It won't get through the
helmet is I can't eat spaghetti.
You know what I mean? So like the simplicity of just that. A lot of times I'm like, grab the accent from home. Like there are tons of characters. I've used my uncle, my mom, my aunts. Like they're right there.
They're right there. Yeah. And it feels like cheating, but it's certainly not. There's nothing wrong with it.
I just had a serious deja vu. I feel like I took a workshop with you, maybe at the clubhouse. This is a few years back, right?
Okay.
And I feel like that I remember that you said that.
Nice. I'm
So
smart.
you are consistent, my friend.
Yes. It is. It's just to, like, this may be too real, but like for someone who tends to not have the world's greatest memory, and I feel like I lose a lot of stuff, it's like that's maybe one of the best compliments I can hear is that I'm consistent. It's like, okay, I may not remember saying that, but at least I always speak from beliefs.
Yeah, yeah. Which is that says big. I mean, man, that says so much, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I really think that I don't know. I think that all the my goal as an improv teacher and really anything is always to try and be consistent because there's no pretense to have to keep up with.
Yeah. Yeah. I got so much on that. I mean, again, this sort of like this a few maybe well should I say a few years back, but now maybe it was maybe 6 or 7 at this point. What the hell is time? I don't know. We lost a year. Like it's like what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like that. Yeah. But anyway, I became, with social media. I mean, obviously, the whole idea of branding and all that stuff became really at the forefront with that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was always there, obviously Coke and Pepsi.
Sure.
But in terms of us, and it's brilliant. That's exactly right. I mean, if you're an actor, this is the instrument, and you use it, and it's how you're perceived, and all that stuff. And so I went on this. I took this class here in LA with a guy. He passed away not long ago. You may have heard of, I don't know, Sam Christensen. A thing called the Sam Christensen image process.
Okay.
And he passed away a few years ago now, maybe 3 or 4. But he was a casting director here in LA for years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in all the acting classes and
sure.
All that. And one of my fellow acting students told me about this guy. I said, hey, you got to check him out because he's really about, yes, obviously being good at your craft is key, but you also need to know how you're perceived. I'm like, yeah. And so I went and took this class, and it was one of those life-changing things. And then I went on this, which is how I am. I'm like, I go like focus on something, I'm there. And so I went on this run of like seeking that out. I remember I had an audition at LA Casting one time, and there was a thing on the wall about archetypes. And I like called the number and was like, how do I get, like, I was doing all these classes on that. And so it became really important to me to understand that and understand like how I'm perceived and all that. And one of the things that was said was, how like you and I could be, let's say you and I are walking down Hollywood Boulevard or whatever, right? And we know each other. I'm like looking at a storefront. I'm like, yo, Rich, that shirt is so you. How people see those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And you might look at that same shirt and think, I wouldn't rock that. But how I see you, or probably how the world sees you, it's important to know that we know that when it comes to casting and all that, right?
Yeah.
That became a really like important thing. So this idea of like, that's why when a lot of times when you go to auditions, they say, oh, just be yourself. You get on camera, just be yourself. And someone's like, hand me a script so I can read this thing and be a character.
Yeah. I don't want to be me.
Yeah, because what is me is a lot of, right? That's a lot of right? Because think about it, if someone says, just be you, how many times are people like, start standing differently and talk like, you know what I mean?
Is this me? Do I look like me?
Right. So that to me is such a huge, important, and it's going back to your point about not having to, put anything on if you're just true to that. That's why but you have to know what that is.
Yeah.
And that is a lifelong journey, the search, knowledge of self. It really is. Whether you're zenned out about it or whether you're just like, who the fuck am I? You know what I'm saying? Whatever way you approach it.
Dude, I don't know if it's in the ether. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's all improv teachers. I've done like 5 interviews so far for this season of Improv Breakdown this week. I feel like know thyself has come up almost every time. Like it is so stereotypical, cliche or whatever, but It is maybe the most valuable damn thing we could know.
It really is. It really is. There's a I don't remember his name, but there's some character actor that one of the classes I was in, and it was used as an example. And I don't remember who it was, but I knew who they were referring to. And it
Mhm.
was one of these guys that plays basically an asshole. It's always the asshole guy, like on film, like right?
Sure.
Yeah, right. And you need the asshole guy. Like
Yeah.
acting imitates life, right? Art imitates life. So you need all of those people. And apparently that's who he is. And he embraces the shit out of it. He's like, this is
Nice.
who I am, and again, I know people like that. As soon as I got a hold of it, I'm like, oh my God, so-and-so from high school, so-and-so from college, so-and-so from New York. You know what I mean? It's like, that's who they are.
Yeah.
I'm rambling, I know, but being from Boston, New Edition, the singing group New Edition,
Yeah.
like growing up, those like the hometown homies, the heroes that I looked up to. You know what I'm saying? So especially being in the music game, it's like they made it out, and they, Bob, everyone knows Bobby Brown. And what's amazing is that people who I didn't obviously know him then because he's older than me, but but I knew of him. But people would say that's once he got out of New Edition and went solo, and that whole bad boy image, that's him.
Yeah.
Tapped into who he really is, and he stopped saying, candy girl, like he stopped doing this one and became, it's my prerogative.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fascinating to me, man.
Oh man, like 10 examples in my head. Like Ruth Buzzy was the ugly, funny girl for decades in Hollywood. She loved her life. She was like a millionaire. Then there was Justin Timberlake kind of broke out of NSYNC, made his own thing. Like there's so many. Do you remember My Name, Dolomite Is My Name? How when they're filming, they're showing the filming of the movie. The white guy actor is like, "What have you done?" He goes, "I play a lot of white guys in in black stories. I'm the bad guy. I've kind of found my niche." And I was like, that's a career, man. He made a career.
Straight up.
I love it.
Straight up. I mean, what's her name? Jennifer Lewis. Yeah. She has that book. I got her book actually. What is it called?
I don't know, Jennifer Lewis.
Mother of Black Hollywood. You would dig that book.
I gotta check it out.
She's good. And I'm sure you recognize her when you see her, like,
oh, of course.
Yeah. But what a title. I saw that title and I was like, there it is.
Yes.
Because she has played everybody's damn mama. If you're a black actor, actress, she's played your mama. And I mean, she played Whitney Houston's mama, and they were not that far off in age, but that's her. It's not that she looks old, she doesn't, but she just has that motherly thing.
Yeah.
And she found that niche, and she was Angela Bassett's mom and What's Love Got to Do with It. She was Whitney's mom and Preacher's wife. She was everybody's mom. So I'm like, yeah, that's a search. And the more, know thyself. I get why that's a huge one.
So, and I know we're going on a rabbit hole here, but let's just go one step further. So for improvisers, our whole thing is we walk on stage kind of a blank slate. So in your opinion, how does an improviser know thyself when they don't know what they're going to be doing on any given show?
It's interesting. I love that. Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. There's a couple things. I talk about this in my classes. Because again, my approach, and I say this all the time, my approach into improv came through training as an actor. But as I say to people who come to my classes, you don't have to be a professional actor to do improv necessarily, right? Because I doctors and you know how it is.
Yeah.
Because we all have imagination, right? So that is one of the things that improv I love about improv, that it taps into.
Yeah.
So it's like training. So like I've trained, Stanislavski or Meisner. People have different approaches. Mamet. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like people have very different beliefs and approaches. Yet a Mamet trained actor can work with a Stanislavski actor, can work with a Meisner actor, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with improv. Whether you did Second City, UCB, you can work with each other, right? And that's one of the things I love, again, appealing about improv. So I think there's a couple of different approaches. At least I'm gonna speak from my own experience, right? there's one part of me that recognizes no matter what I'm doing, it's me still doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like when people talk about acting, oh, the type of actor that disappears in the character, those kinds of things. I get where that's coming from, but it's still so and so playing such and such.
Yeah.
There's still you in there. Now you may do things, and those are some amazing moments when you like let go to the point where you are like, I didn't even realize I was capable of that. It's like a mother that lifts the car up because her child needs to be right. That kind of strength.
Yeah.
So there's that approach where you could look at it from that perspective of like, it's still you. It's just you being open. It's you being open to whatever the hell is about to happen. On the other side, the blank slate thing, I think, there are many times where I remember when we used to do it in person, I would go to a jam or whatever, and I would decide that today I am focusing on characters I never play, let's just say.
Nice.
And I would make choices that Tezz would never make. So it's still me making it, but I'm deliberately going to a place where I'm like, this accent quickly turned Jamaican, or right, or this whatever. So from that perspective, again, it's still me, but I think it's a little more in line with I'm trying to step as far away from me as possible. I think those things are doable, but it's still you.
Yeah.
Still you.
I love it. Tezz, I could talk to you all day, but where can people find out about your classes, about your whatever you're plugging? Where are we sending people?
Yeah, I'm just doing the social media thing. I make it real easy.
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that jazz. My web, I'm actually redoing my website, which I'm very excited about, which is not done yet, but it will be. And
probably by the time this comes out, it will be.
Right. At Tezz Yancey, very simple on all those platforms, Facebook,
Great.
Instagram. My website will probably just be Tezz Yancey, because I'm trying to keep it try to keep it as simple as possible. But
you've got such a Googleable name. I mean, I don't know too many other Tezz Yanceys.
Yeah.
None, actually. None. I know none.
There you go. One of a kind.
Yeah.
But you can find me on all those platforms just under my name.
Excellent. Well, take a class from Tezz if you want to check out. He's a very funny performer, and Tezz, just so great talking to you. Thanks for being on the breakdown.
My pleasure, brother.